latest episode of Back at the Ranch, Expedition Online's after show. I'm your host, Danny Knaub. With me is our latest deserted explorer, Kyle. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Good, yourself?
I'm good, and especially because I think you brought a special guest, didn't you?
Yes, I did. You may know her from your season.
Hi, Danny!
Yay! So everyone at home, if you don't know, Denise is Kyle's wife. They're married. Denise, I know because Denise and I actually played the sister production of Expedition Online, Big Brother Online, season 1. She was my shot partner, and we placed first and second. So watch out, world. Yeah. Denise is here. So I wanted to a chance to say hi to Denise, but I thought, Denise and I were known as shop partners in our season of Big Brother. Kyle, I thought you brought so much fun to this game this season, hosting the very first I don't know what you called it, but it was a party night where all the mods were there. We were all drinking. There was no game talk. It was just such a fun Friday night. So I thought we could toast, and I'm even using my shot partner shot glass, Denise, that you bought.
All right.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Okay. Woo. Okay. Thank you, Denise, for joining us. Kyle, it is time. Talk game. Bye. Okay. So Kyle, jumping in, obviously you come from sort of a family of gamers. Your brother-in-law is Jonathan Dykes, who's our in-game moderator. You have a lot of connections to the Expedition community. So do you think that helped your game, or do you think that hurt your game? Did anybody know?
No, nobody knew until jury. So I definitely kept that a secret. I said that my wife had played, so I had a little bit of an insider. But I also told him that she played a Big Brother version, so not necessarily the Survivor one, so I wouldn't have too big of a target on my back right off the get-go.
Yeah.
But other than that, they were unaware of any of that.
Kudos to you, because knowing how much of a target is sort of put on Garrett and what was his Jake? I believe.
Jack.
Sorry, because they had played a mini. You and Denise also played a mini, so the fact that you were sort of able to kind of hide that, you for sure. So kudos to that. So coming into the game, you are on Team Janet. Team Janet is pretty stacked. You guys win both immunity challenges in a row, which is incredible. Even though that Jennifer was a no-show, which was kind of I think a surprise to everybody. So my first question to you is, going into day 3, when your party finally loses its first challenge, what is your strategy going back to camp? Because on the outside, I would think that Jennifer would be targeted because of, sometimes you're looking for that easy vote, but you all choose Dakota. So I'm curious what the reasoning was for that.
There was actually a message issue between Dakota and Jared. I didn't get the full story because I tried to stay out of the extra drama, but apparently she had tried to side message him. She claimed it was a mistake and they didn't really talk, but he didn't want to break any rules, so he told the mods, and it was a big back and forth. So the target quickly went to her as easy vote out, and it was kind of like, how do you accidentally message somebody? Especially again, I don't know the context, so it could have been an accident. But you would think if it was an accident, say I was having a side conversation with yourself and I was asking you about work or something and I sent it to the wrong person, that's an obvious accident. But if it was something game, or it's hey, how's it going, how you feeling, to me that's still a game, kind of advancing your relationship with that person. So again, without knowing the context, I went off of how do you really make that mistake. So it was just the easy vote. The first one's the hardest, so any little thing put the target on your back. So it was going to be her or Jennifer, and just because of that, everyone went that way.
Well, I talked to her and she still swears that it was an accident, that it wasn't anything game related. I'm sticking out of it too. So obviously the Dakota vote then seemed fairly easy. It was a sweep. I think every vote was for Dakota except for Dakota's vote. So just in terms of your party dynamics, are you finding yourself at this point already sort of leading the charge? Because I think you were always sort of elevated into this level of, in charge of the party, running it a little bit.
Yeah, unfortunately, I guess my prior knowledge of the game and just my overall competitive, strategic self. The first couple challenges, a lot of people didn't really know how they're going to go about it. Like didn't really have a strategy or idea. So I was kind of giving out pointers just as like a try this way, like maybe it'll work better. And it actually was. So that's kind of how I became the leader without being a leader. Like I wasn't making any of the, I wasn't calling any of the shots. I was just more helping along the challenge. I'm like, I would rather help you and kind of take the role of the leader and we win the challenge as opposed to me just being like, well, I guess this person's not going to help us today and we're going to lose. So I played it as that, and I guess that kind of started the trail towards me being leader.
Well, I think that started it, but also the fact that you sort of become known as like the compass finder. I mean, how many compasses total did you find this season?
I received 2 compasses, but technically I found every single one that was out there, just they were claimed before me.
Yeah,
There wasn't one advantage that I didn't find.
yeah.
So
And did you have a steal a vote? Or like,
I did. I got to steal a vote as well. The steal a vote actually got late. I was surprised I got it because I was actually I was preoccupied with Denise. She had an appointment at the hospital.
yeah.
So I got back like it was about half an hour after the trail map was given out, where that's where the hint was. And it was like 5 minutes before we were going online. So I just kind of looked quickly and I was able to actually find it within like 5 minutes. Luckily, I just picked the right platform. But yeah, apparently nobody else was really looking for it, or they didn't really know where to look because I was shocked that I found it that quick when I know some people were online right away.
Yeah. I think it just shows that you're really good at this at this game. So we then go into a swap. Luckily, you're a part of the majority. But going into that very first sort of double desertion with the party swap, this I think also because you use your compass at that crossroads. So talk to me a little bit about that vote. Did you know votes were coming your way? What was your strategy behind playing your compass? And I know obviously the votes fell back onto Jack. So I'm curious why Jack?
So that was actually an interesting crossroads because our main target was actually Jack, but we were worried that he might have the compass. So that's why I kind of went at him at the crossroads to kind of scare him into playing the compass. And then we were going to vote out Gideon just as like a side piece. And then hopefully that way the compass was gone. Gideon, like one of their numbers was gone, and we're still alive.
Yeah.
Um, but then it ended up Gideon had the compass, and they had already said, like all 3 of them had said that they talked about voting my way, even though they didn't have the numbers. So that's the only reason why I saved myself. Because I knew we were all voting Gideon. So as soon as he played the compass on himself, and they had told me that they had talked about voting me out, I'm like, I have to play it. I can't, because I knew none of our votes were going to count. So I was like, I can't risk going home this early just because somebody else had a compass. So I was forced to play it. Whereas if we would have went with our original strategy, we could have just voted Jack straight out, and then Gideon would have wasted the compass. But so the plan didn't go exactly as planned, but we still got the compass out. We still got one of them out. Just unfortunately, I lost my compass along the way.
Yeah. Is there a reason why you chose Jack over like Ryan to take out first?
That was for the exact reason you had already spoke about. Gideon and Ryan had informed us that Jack and Garrett had played in a season before in a mini. They didn't know the details, and so it was just one of those things where we couldn't risk them getting to a rendezvous and still working together, like if they were friends or if they decided they were going to be in an alliance in this round. So it was just not something worth trying. So that was one of the things that we're like, we just have to get him or Garrett out, and he was on this side, so we went after him.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. It was interesting because I was going back through like the voting history. So I noticed that Jack had actually voted for Gideon. So it sounded like he was sort of, trying to extend an olive branch to you guys to maybe bring him in. So that's why I was kind of curious why him over Ryan, but that totally makes sense. So obviously the next vote, you guys lose again, but you vote out Gideon. He's back in the game. Are you nervous about this? Are you worried he's going to enact some kind of like revenge on you or?
Not so much worried about like a revenge because, like I said, I already had a target, and it was another number that they had lost, or at least wasn't on our side anymore. It was more the fact that like after him having the compass and just seeing him online a lot, and I know he's pretty good with some of the streaming platforms. Like I believe he has his own Discord and Twitch streams. So I figured he must know his way around the platforms and be able to like he obviously knows how to find the clues and the rewards because he did. So I was like, that kind of sucks that he's still alive because he can potentially find more. Um, sorry.
Oh,
Oh, Clay, settle down. So yeah, so it was more just I knew he was going to be a very strategic player and he wasn't going to be on my side.
yeah,
So it was more I'd rather he be out of the game as opposed to just still in there and possibly getting more advantages or anything.
definitely. No, for sure. So then the next challenge that we go into, I think, was definitely another one of the craziest crossroads that I've been a witness to. I personally feel like, having watched your game, this was sort of when you really put the target on you. Like I feel like you've had a target, but like this crossroads was because you were very like dramatic about it. You were very like, look at me,
Yeah.
I'm gonna make this big thing. So talk to me a little bit about that crossroads. So at this point, your team won the challenge. So normally you wouldn't have to go to crossroads, but your party was given the choice of, we're all going, but you can either not vote and not have any risk of being voted for, or you could risk your immunity by voting and also go at risk of going home. So to me, it feels like that's a lot to be happening, and you only have 1 hour. So what brings you to playing your compass, and just what was your vision for this crossroads?
So this one was interesting because one of the other crossroads we actually got to spectate. It was part of one of our rewards for winning. So we knew that the original team Ethan on that side was slowly picking off the original team Janet's, and that's when they voted off Jennifer.
Mhm.
So we knew that they were most likely going Justin or Jared and just which way they're going to go. So I knew by myself I couldn't just guess and play the compass unless they made it obvious who they were voting for, which they didn't. But just before we ended up going to Crossroads, me and Daniel were actually working on another clue that we got. And we came up with the answer and we submitted it in to Shane. Unfortunately, well, not that it really mattered, but Daniel submitted it like literally seconds before I did.
Yeah.
So he got it. And what it was he had to gift a safety without power, where they get to leave Crossroads and they can't be voted out, but they don't vote. So he had decided that whoever he could speak to first in the lobby, because we were all in one shelter at that point, whoever he can get a hold of first, he was going to tell either Jared or Justin that he was going to give it to them and they can save themselves. So once I knew he was doing that, I kind of figured it out in my head that the smartest thing I can do for us number wise is to save the other person and force Team Ethan to vote themselves out. And then yeah, just like I guess I kind of got a little bit too cocky in the Crossroads chat, but it was at the same time too, they were kind of being rude to our members in the past Crossroads. Not necessarily rude, like um more just like game wise, like they weren't including them, like they were claiming that they were talking to them, but we knew that they really weren't. So it was just one of those like when you're on the top and like you don't involve the other person, it's kind of demoralizing in the game. So I had an idea of how they probably felt. So I was like, oh, this will be nice just to kind of play this on them and force them have to make a last minute decision on who they're voting out. So going in, our strategy was supposed to be no one was supposed to vote from Team Janet because we didn't want to risk getting it.
Yeah.
But because I kind of said that there was going to be some fireworks and stuff, um, Maddie and Ryan took that as me trying to hint at them that we should be voting because we had talked about possibly all of us voting and just voting out Hannah in the first place just to get the better numbers. But there was always that scare of the compass. So we were going back and forth, and we had actually decided not to vote. But I guess because of my speech, that's why Maddie and Ryan actually ended up voting Hannah. And luckily, the compass wasn't played on her. But I also knew too, with me playing that compass on Justin, and also with my speech, I knew I was gonna kind of rile them up a bit. So it worked out that Garrett ended up playing his compass on Gideon, which was a complete waste.
Yeah.
Mind you, no matter who he played on, it didn't really matter because our people were all going to be safe.
Yeah.
So then obviously I played on mine to get rid of Justin, so he was fine. And then yeah, it ended up being Justin voted for Hannah, and so did Maddie and Ryan. So Hannah went straight home, as opposed to I figured there was going to be a revote. It was going to be like a 1-0, and then they have to vote out their own. But either way, it worked out because one of them went home and our two got saved. So we knew it was going to help our numbers in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, again, as a spectator and as a mod, like we live for those moments because it was so explosive. Did Justin know you were going to play for it? Because I don't think he.
Oh,
No,
so that compass, no one knew that I had that compass.
that's what I
It was
thought.
just me. Actually, I might have told Maddie last minute that I had it, but I didn't tell her I was gonna play it because it was literally like that safety without power. Daniel had found that like at most 5 minutes before Crossroads. So it just happened to be that I was in a room with him when he got it. So I knew what the plan was, but we didn't really have time to tell everyone else. So that was just kind of how that all went down.
Yeah.
So
So my question to you is like, obviously that was incredible gameplay. I mean, incredible because I love that you really forced the other party to essentially, destroy one of their own, which is always fun because then you really start to see the hierarchy where everyone is. So, question to you is because you didn't tell Justin and because you really did keep your compass hidden, were you worried at all that your party would be upset that you didn't fill them in, even though you did use it for their benefit?
I knew there was a chance, but the way that I look at compasses is you either have to keep it a super secret or you can only really tell the person that you're basically going to go final two, final three with.
Mhm.
And which is why I think I told Maddie because my if the game went the way that I had planned, I would have went to the final three with Maddie and Jared. We had kind of
Oh,
touched on this alliance fairly early on in the game.
okay.
So I had told her about my first compass, and I'm pretty sure I told her about that one when I got it, just like as a show of good faith that like, look, I'm in this final three, like I want to run with you guys. Um, but I didn't tell anyone else because, like I said, I didn't want too many people to know they had it because then the target on my back gets even bigger.
Yeah.
And like I said, I wanted to be able to play it at a point where I can save numbers for us or ruin one of their votes. So this just kind of turned into the perfect storm for us, the way that the numbers worked out and with the safety without power.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so then you make merge, or our version is called rendezvous. So congratulations. That's obviously always every explorer, every survivor in the real world. That's usually a benchmark. Obviously, everyone wants to win, but it's like I want to make the merge or the rendezvous. I want to be jury. So kudos, congratulations. You obviously did that. Gabe is voted out this next one. That seemed pretty straightforward in a way. Anything to kind of add on that, or?
It was supposed to be a straightforward vote because again, we had still always worries of a compass being out there. So we had kind of figured that they thought we would either gun for Garrett because his name was brought up multiple times and it had been mentioned that he was involved in the other game. So everyone kind of knew at this point. And of course, because we already voted out Gideon, he's just a natural target as well.
Yeah.
So we had decided we were going to go with Gabe. But at this point, there was 6 original Janets and 5 original Ethans.
Mm-hmm.
But the last 2 votes, Ryan had actually voted with us. So he was kind of showing his loyalty, and he was an original Team Ethan.
Sorry, I'm looking. Okay.
So we were under the assumption that he was going to vote with us. So it should have been a simple 7-4 vote, and it didn't really matter who they were voting for, as long as they didn't miraculously pick Gabe as playing their compass on.
Mm-hmm.
But just the way that Ryan was acting, like I was never really comfortable with him, but I knew worst case scenario, even if you went back to the other side, it was still 6-5.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew we were good. And of course, that is actually what ended up happening. So Gabe got 6 votes and Rob got 5,
Yeah.
and Rob almost went home.
Yeah.
And for some reason, Team Janet, with the exception of me, still had faith in Ryan, and they thought that he had just made a mistake or something. And so yeah, they had this extra trust in him, and it was just I kept telling them like we can't trust him. Like he didn't vote with us, and even after the vote, he was the only person to go in a private room with Rob, and we knew he was apologizing for the vote. Again, obviously they didn't own up to what that conversation was, but they also didn't deny it. So I'm fairly confident that is what went down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm assuming because of that alliance, whatever they had with them, that's kind of what led was like the start of the downfall of me. Like on top of already having the big target, I feel like they looked at it like we have a chance now with Ryan and we can still keep the numbers.
Yeah.
So they're kind of gonna come for me. But because of everything with Garrett, I think that's why the next vote ended up being Garrett and then not me, and then that's why I went after.
Yeah. Well, I think your instincts were pretty spot on. I'm not supposed to be saying I don't think anything because I guess you'll find everything out as people get voted out and you can like
Yep.
run everything by them. But I was checking we have like a voting history document, so I was like wanting to make sure like I knew exactly what was going on. Um, so then so just overall question, because again, as a moderator, being in a lot of conversations, especially starting to lead up, because I think that when you watch this back eventually, you'll see that there were seeds starting of like, we need to get Kyle out, which I think you would know,
Oh yeah.
obviously, just because of the compass play and all that. But there was talk that if people felt like you were either like almost acting like a dictator, like dictating very like in charge. Did you see it that way? Or do you feel like they just sort of had to like, fit
I
in?
did not because I had actually had this conversation with our party. I can't remember if it was before or after a challenge. I specifically went into the shelter with everyone. I was like, I just want to make it clear for everyone that like I'm not trying to be the leader here. I'm just like I just want to win these challenges. So like if I see something that doesn't make sense or if I see somebody struggling and I can give them a piece of advice, I will. But like I'm not trying to be the leader here. And everyone on Team Janet reassured me that no, that like they appreciated that and they knew that that was part of the reason why we had won two of the challenges already because they were kind of lost in one of them. Um, so yeah, so I was good with that. So I'm like, okay, at least they understand that this isn't me trying to take control. Because as you guys watch it, you'll see like there was not really a point where I was like, this person has to go now. Like we're all gonna vote this person.
Yeah.
I was always like, what are you guys thinking? What do you guys like? And I just threw ideas like along with them. Like if they said, well, what if this person has a compass? I'm like, well, then we can split the votes, or we can vote like a random person that we don't think they'll play a compass on. But it
Mhm.
was never, I never once feel that I did, nor do I think I actually did dictate any of the votes. I just happened to be on the right side of every single vote up until my own.
No, that's interesting. I mean, I see that. I mean, I think that just your personality in general, I think it probably comes across that you're, it's kind of like, here's what we should do. Here's what I mean, but I understand completely what you're saying. And again, that's kind of speaks to this game. This game is complicated because when you're having to vote people out, people can spin things. It's sort of like, oh, I don't like how so and so said something to me, and you can kind of make that spread like wildflowers. It's just sort of that's
Yeah.
this game is like you pick at things just to kind of blow them up a little bit more to kind of help your own game. So going into Friday, which is the crazy challenge superlatives, which is usually the demise of people and really blows up people's games. So I only took notes of if you were voted either first or second because there were so many, people would get like a point here. So essentially, you were voted strategic, guarded, arrival, aware, and then the worst one to be in this game, winning.
Yeah.
Do you feel like those
Um,
were fair representations of you, or do you think they got any of those wrong?
I think it was fair. Because like I said, I mean, I guess it all comes down to like your definition. Like I wouldn't say that I was necessarily guarded, because the people that I was working with and comfortable with, I gave them whatever I felt they needed or whatever would help our game. But if you're looking at it again more strategic, like yeah, there's certain things I'm not going to tell you if I know it's going to ruin my game or if it's going to cost me or any way. And I'm guarded in the sense that I played the compasses in certain ways, but like again, that's to me that's more strategic. Um, sorry, I actually have these words here too from when I wrote them all down, so I was just looking back at some of them. But then like I remember too, like there were some of them were like I forget which one it was. It might have been like the trustworthy one. There was like 6 names or something like that that was on it, and I was like, I was not in there, and I was like, ooh, that kind of hurts. But I'm like seeing how I haven't lied to anyone in this game.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
there was actually only one lie in the entire game that I told, and it wasn't even that big of a lie because I easily went back to it. It was when that actually the one for the steal a vote challenge.
yeah.
Because I had gotten back to my computer like 5 minutes to go. I told them that I didn't watch the entire video for that the solo cup bowling, and that's where the clue was. So I had already had the reward, but I told them I didn't even see the clue because I didn't have time to watch the whole video. Once I saw it was bowling, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I know how to do this. Like, let's just get back into the party so I don't miss anything.
Yeah.
But obviously I saw it because I had it.
Yeah.
But other than that, like there was not one person that I lied to about game wise or personal stuff or anything. So it was one of those things where like I found it weird that like certain like people seemed to think that I was like untrustworthy or like I believe even once I was called a snake and I was like, okay, I'm like, I don't know what I did to anyone here. Cause like I've always had conversations with everyone. The only one that I didn't really was Chantel, who made it quite clear in the last crossroads. But I also look at it too as a two-way street. Like she never once tried to pull me into a room. And there was no one in the game that I ever denied going into a room with. Um, so I just looked at it like if I already have a strong 6 and you guys only have 3, why am I gonna try and pull you into a room solo and have an extra conversation with you that I don't necessarily need to have?
Well, I think
So
that's what I think people refer to as like jury management and just trying to, even if it's not necessarily beneficial to your game, it's still beneficial to your game. Just sort of forging those relationships. That's what makes this game complicated and hard because you have people who can talk to everybody just to try to save face and to try to get out there, and sometimes that works for people, sometimes it doesn't. But going into that crossroads, obviously Garrett had missed the challenge. It seemed pretty easy that Garrett was going to be voted out. You have a bit of a fight with him at the crossroads, which again was kind of fun to watch. But I guess just my question going into your final day is that at this point, and unless I'm crazy, I feel like you have to have realized you were a massive target. So is there any part of you that's like, I need to dial this down? Because even with the Garrett vote, you were still very forthcoming and very like, I'm gonna get votes, and just sort of being cocky, a little bit cocky, like confident,
yeah.
cocky. So is there ever a part of you that felt like, okay, I've had a few days in a row of like really having a spotlight on me that I should try to ease it down or spin it on somebody else?
Yeah, I probably should have toned it down a bit, but at the same time too, this was gonna be I believe the third time I was getting votes. And people weren't shy to tell me that they were voting me, even though I'd already had found a couple compasses. So I thought it was kind of like almost rude in their sense to be like, well, I don't care what's happening. I'm voting you tonight anyway. So I was like, okay, well, if you guys are just like smart enough to play a compass on your save yourself, you're just letting me save myself again or figure something out. Mind you, at that time I didn't have a compass, so if they would have played something, it would have been smart on them. But it was one of those things where, like I said, at that point, I knew that I had a target on my back. They were already gunning for me. There wasn't too much I could have done at that point. Even if I like threw the challenge or something, they're just gonna be like, "Oh, he's just being cocky. Now he can just throw it." I feel like I was at the point where there was no return. It didn't matter what I did or how I did it. They were gonna take it as me being either rude or ignorant or cocky or whatever, and again, just still trying to stay in the game. But at this point, during the vote where Garrett went out, I had a feeling that Maddie and or Jared were not necessarily wanting to go farther with me. So at this point, I actually started talking more to other members from Team Janet. So I had a good relationship with Daniel because we had found that clue before, and we've always had good conversation. So I had told Daniel that I would not write his name, which again was not a lie because I never did. And I had a conversation with Rob where we actually made a final two deal. And at this point, with just to kind of seal that relationship with him, I had told him about my steal vote as like a show of good faith. So again, I thought I was going to be decent with him, and I thought between the four of them, if a real vote was kind of going my way, I thought maybe one of them would circle back and tell me, and I could try and make something happen. But they were very good at keeping it tight-lipped. Like I said, I knew at some point they're coming for me. That night I had no idea. I was not expecting to go home that night,
So
or I would have actually tried a little bit more trickery during the crossroads. But I didn't see the point in playing the steal a vote
it wouldn't have mattered.
because the only way the steal a vote would have worked is if I stole Chantel's vote and kind of threatened everyone that, well, there's going to be two votes going out here with two compasses still out there. So good luck, everybody. And just kind of make them think like I'm going to be playing a compass on myself as well. But I'm pretty sure they had communicated at that point and they knew kind of who had the compasses, which I'm pretty sure at that point, the two compasses that are in the game, I know for sure, if not three, I was fairly confident that Maddie had one just by the way she was acting, and Ryan for sure.
Okay.
And I actually found out later on that Ryan did have a compass, and he also has a legacy advantage, which gives him safety at 7.
And 7.
Oh, okay. I didn't know about the 11, but I guess because we already passed that.
Yeah.
And then at 7. So I was like, well, we're down to like 9 at this point. So I'm like, if he wins one, he basically has a free pass to final 5 or at least final 6. So I'm like, this was why my last push there, like after the Garrett vote, the next vote, I was like, we need to get out Ryan and put some extra votes on Gideon to the safety net because I knew we had to pull something out if he had it or he had to go home. And then that's when they decided to turn on me. So they basically, like I said, them voting out me gave Ryan final 6 or final 5.
Yeah.
Automatically. So
yeah, I mean, from an outsider's perspective, you nailed it. I think you were just a huge threat. I think that if you made it to the end, you had a really good case of winning. I think too, without spoiling anything, is that I think that people knew where the compasses were. So I think they knew you didn't have one. And so they felt that was that was a chance to get you out with enough numbers to kind of protect everyone's selves. Which is why I think going into that final night, it was going to be you. So my sort of final question about your game is that you're a Survivor fan, I'm a Survivor fan, and when you watch an episode and you see the episode, and obviously this is editing, but they always edit in a way where it's just like people are like, oh, tonight is just so easy. Like tonight's vote is just so easy. And it's like the whole episode where then that person gets blindsided. I felt like when I was watching last night, because I sort of knew where it was heading, that was the case because everyone was just like, okay, sort of Gideon, right? Yep, okay. Anything else to say? Nope. And it was just this weird night or on Saturday, whatever night it was, where it was just like no one was talking because you all thought it was easy. So was there any part of you, like any hair standing in the back of your neck that you thought maybe this was gonna lead to your demise, or were you so in that zone of like, it's easy, it's Gideon?
No, like I said, I didn't necessarily think they were. There was zero chance that I thought it was going to be unanimous. I had thought that more it might have been like the three of them, like Chantel, Gideon, and Ryan, may have convinced one or two to flip over just to get rid of me and then go back to the original. But I guess in hindsight, that would kind of hurt their game more than anything else. So that's why, like, if you actually, like, again, I can't remember exactly what I said, but I know I was like, I had faith in my party that we were going to stick together and go by the plan, but I was not sitting comfortable at all. Like I knew my name was coming up. I knew that at the very least I was getting 2 or 3 votes from the original Ethans. But yeah, I just didn't think that they were going to pull that trigger that soon. Because like I said, they were just as scared as Gideon as they were me. The only difference was Gideon kind of flopped in a couple of challenges, which I don't know was if that was strategic or if he just happened to miss up or whatever. But and then between that and then Ryan being clutch in every single challenge, I don't get how they weren't going after him. Like there was not one challenge that I can remember where Ryan wasn't in the top. So it's like, why are you allowing this kid to get so far? He had already lied to us. He had already changed his vote, and like they still forgave him. And he got voted like the nicest or kindest, and I think he had one other one. So I was
Yeah, and he's
like,
playing a good game. Like
yeah.
people aren't quite looking at him. So looking back, we're going to try to wrap this up. So looking back, do you have any regrets? Anything that you would have changed?
Well, yeah, obviously, if I ever play a game like this again, I'll definitely be toning it down. And I'll try and keep my compasses more of a secret because even in my minis, I don't know if it's just because I'm so competitive, but it just seems like compasses seem to be more detrimental than helpful, even though this one had actually saved me. Because like in my mini, the alliance I was in, the one guy didn't want to tell me about his compass for whatever reason. And because of that, one of our alliance members went home because he misplayed the compass.
Mm,
Even though I had gave him every little bit of possible information he could have needed to know that he had to play it and that they were stealing his vote and like he couldn't do anything about it. So all he had to do was tell me that he had the compass and I could have picked off. I would have been the sole vote that counted. We could have picked whoever we wanted.
yeah.
And actually, our target at that time was actually the person that came second. So if he would have just told me, the whole game is different and who knows what happens. But and again, same thing. I thought that I had good amount of faith and trust in Maddie and Jared, and just after a couple of days, I knew they weren't really reciprocating information back to me as much. So I knew I kind of had to make some moves, but I did not make too many moves to kind of piss them off either.
Yeah.
So it was a tough line to pass to cross there. And like I
Well,
said, I just tried to play it the best I could, and it just didn't work out.
no, I mean, and you know, it, you played a great game. I mean, you played really hard. This game is difficult, and it takes a lot to get to the end. There's luck, there's strategy, there's a lot that goes into it. So I love the fact that you played hard. I love that you played loud, that you played aggressive, that you took risks, you made moves. I mean, that is what makes an all-star. That's what makes it enjoyable for people like us to watch at home. I think you kind of answered my question, but like, if you were asked, would you play again? You kind of answered it.
100%. I've wanted to be on this game for a while now. Obviously, knowing with Jonathan streaming, and he's been playing this for a while. Kind of a different format before than what you guys are playing, but same overall game. My only issue is I work shift work, so it's hard for me to do. Because if I'm on afternoons, I'm literally playing on my phone in a school, so a lot of these supplies might not be there, and or it's hard to work around work. But because of this whole COVID stuff, I was getting more day shifts, so this kind of worked out. And but then it didn't work out.
Final question. Who do you, those that are remaining in the game, who do you think has the best chance of winning?
I would have to say Ryan, just because of the advantages he has, and just like apparently he's making good relationships because even the people that he lied to and voted against are still going with him, or at least as far as I know. I think it'd either be him or Maddie because Maddie seemed to have conversations with everyone, regardless of what side they're on. I don't really know the extent to any of those conversations, obviously, but just like you said, the fact that she did touch base with everyone almost every single day. Um, I knew she was going to play that super social game. That's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to work with her from the get-go. Um, so yeah, I would say those two would be my picks. Ryan overall, if I had to, because like I said, at this point, I'm voting for him if he gets there, just because the way that he's played, right? He kind of went from the bottom. He convinced a bunch of people he was going to play with them, and he clearly wasn't. That wasn't really his intention. He has the advantages, so he's playing those as well too. Like he's obviously doing stuff outside the game.
Yeah.
And like I said, with him being very nice, very genuine, and being a competitor, I
Yeah.
respect that a lot more than somebody that just kind of floated to the end.
I agree. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Thank you for sharing insight into your game. Obviously, I'm a big fan of yours. I love you, I love your wife. So looking forward to getting to know you more outside the game. Welcome to the jury. You get to help us reward a winner. And I think your vote out is going to really start some insanity. So I feel like we're gearing up for what's going to be a very crazy few weeks, 2 weeks, week and a half, whatever's left in the game. So
Yeah, it should be a good finish.
it's gonna
And yeah, thank you very much for having me. And to all the mods and fans out there, if there is a chance, I will return and play again, whether it's all stars, fans versus favorites, or even heroes and villains. I don't even care. I'll be a villain if I have to, whatever. I'm definitely interested in playing again, and hopefully with some people that are more used to the game and a little bit more competitive. Yeah, we will see.
I have a feeling this is not the last I'll see of you. So again, thank you, everyone at home. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night, and let's see who I'll be interviewing next. I don't know who's going on. So have a good night.
Take care.